Oh, there it is. We have a new sign that says we are on air, so. Good morning. I will open the Candido County Commissioners Board meeting for Tuesday, July 2nd. First order of business is to stand and recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. For all those that are watching us on YouTube or in the audience, welcome. Today is the, as I said, July 2nd, the first meeting of July. And the first order of business is to approve the agenda. I would open up the floor for that motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you for that. I was afraid we might have to go home early if we didn't. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
So Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves, Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So on the consent agenda, we have approval of the June 18th legal minutes, approval of the Board of Equalization minutes, the approval of the auditor's warrants and claims, paying the bills, and then the United Community Action Partnership contract addendum to the 2023 Homeless Prevention Aid Service Agreement. So fairly routine stuff. Look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I so move.
Commissioner Berg moves on the consent agenda. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, under general business discussions, first item up is the Children's Dental Services Memorandum Agreement. Caroline?
Good morning. I am Caroline Kahn. I have the opportunity to serve Candy, Ojai County as the Health and Human Services Director. And this morning I have before you a memorandum of agreement between Candy, Ojai County and Children's Dental Services. Children's Dental Services is a partnership that was brought to us by our partner Prime West, who has agreed to help support bring this critical service to our community on an ongoing monthly basis, where Children's Dental Services will commute to our county and use public health space to provide dental access for children's, for anyone. We've asked them specifically to target children receiving medical assistance or might not otherwise have access to dental services. So this agreement would allow for Children's Dental Services to utilize public health space. Our public health team has met with this organization and determined the utilization of either some of their WIC spaces and or some other public spaces. So the commitment that Candy, Ojai County would be making is to utilize the in-kind of electricity, water, and space usage. Individuals will contact Children's Dental Services directly to make appointments, and then their service for traveling here is covered by our partner of Prime West at this time.
So you're looking for approval
I'm
on
looking,
this?
yes, I would like action on approving the memorandum of agreement for Children's Dental Services.
So you heard staff recommendation. How do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair, also move.
Commissioner Dale Anderson moves on the agreement with Prime West for Children's Dental Services. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Berg seconds. Any questions or comments?
Oh, yes, I
Go
did
ahead.
have a couple of questions. Where are you thinking about possibly putting this? And how much space is it going to take? And
Yep. So ideally, before they come in, we're assessing utilizing one of our WIC exam rooms because that provides more of that kind of medical experience, and we have these beautifully redesigned rooms. And if that is not enough space, we're looking at possibly using that 1090, which is one of our public conference areas located near public health. It's really a beautiful partnership because it'll also provide additional exposure to our public health programs such as WIC or so we're really excited about having the opportunity for individuals to come in and not only have access to dental services, but have a little bit more exposure to our public health team. So all the Children's Dental Services has said is they need, I believe, a garbage can and access to water.
Okay.
So,
May I follow up, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. About how many kids do they expect to, are you hoping to serve per year or month or whatever when they come?
I'm gonna ask Denise to come because she had more of the actual details of appointment scheduling.
So,
Sure. Good morning. I'm Denise
morning.
Bring. I'm a supervisor in public health. So I have had a number of conversations, both with the Prime West representative, get it out, and the Children's Dental Service folks. They've both been wonderful to work with. We're very excited about this. You're probably all aware that it's been a need in our community for a long time, particularly for children on medical assistance. So generally, it's once a month that they will come out here. We asked if we could get a couple times in August, and they were kind enough. Prime West was kind enough to say they would support that. So they're going to pay for this group from the Children's Dental Service to come out twice in August. So we already have our dates set up. July 17th, they'll be coming out, and then August 6th and August 27th. So they'll be here from 9 to 5. They said typically they can serve between 10 and 12 appointments a day. Of course, it all depends upon what type of appointment. They told us, I mean, they bring everything, all their stuff, they'll bring in, put in, and they said they can do every type of service that you would get at your normal dentist. Wow. Yeah, we're really, really excited about this. Hopefully it will be a long-term partnership.
So,
no, go ahead.
go ahead if you have a follow-up.
I was just going to say what a need there is for that, and thank you and all your staff, and Prime West and Dale and I are involved. So we kind of hear it on that end, but not the kind of the details that you're coming up with as well. What a need. Thank you.
Yeah, to follow up on the Prime West thing, as we recall, over the past few years, we were struggling with maybe the definition of the law regarding services, and this DHS decided that we had to offer two services. Well, one of the benefits of Prime West, besides the fact that they serve our clients for less cost than some of the big ones do, they also put a lot of money into the communities, and this is one of those examples of the money that they, when they take some of their profits and put them back to work in the communities. This is a very good example of that. One of the questions I had, how many is they? And when you say they bring everything, is it portable? Do they take it with them then when they leave? Like, I think about my dentist chair, it's not gonna be that easy to get in and out of the building, and get set up.
Right, well, this is apparently a service they've done in other places. I mean, they've taken their show on the road before, so we don't have experience in knowing exactly what that looks like, because it hasn't happened here yet, but yes, they said they come in with everything, and they go back out with everything, and they service just like if you were in a dentist office.
And they is
I
4 or 5?
I believe it's
We don't know that yet either, huh?
4.
Okay.
I think it's 3 or 4 total folks, because when we were looking at room sizes, that was part of our conversation, how many people are going to be in there. So it's either 3 or 4. They needed like a 10 by 10 space is what they originally told us when we were looking at options for a space.
Very good. Any other
Yeah,
Commissioner Dwayne?
I got a couple questions. So when it says children, what's the age range, like 2 to 17 or?
They can serve all ages. We
Oh.
want to focus on kids.
Okay, that's what our contract is for the.
And what are,
Okay,
to follow up, what are our kids? What are you focusing on?
We want to look at particularly probably 12 and under.
Okay.
all right, thank you.
It depends, we'll see how things go and how they fill and when we want to expand that. But from their perspective, they can serve all ages.
Yep. They specialize in infancy to 26, but they can serve all ages.
Okay,
Specifically with our partnerships, we're excited to really release their promotional materials within some of our human services programs as well, like children that we serve in other areas, because those are some of our most vulnerable populations that aren't receiving some of the access where they're traveling to the metro or all throughout the state of Minnesota in order to receive that service. So
okay.
it'll
And
be
then,
open to the community, but, it'll be by appointment that people will schedule directly with Children's Dental Services. So they won't know if we gave them the number or if they got it off of a, article in the paper or off social media. They're not going to ask those questions, but we'll be making sure that we're promoting it within, throughout our programs as well.
okay. So up until now, what have we done to help them, like children that need it have we done anything, or is this a new thing?
This is a new opportunity for us. We have,
Okay.
this is an innovative way to kind of meet some of this needs.
Okay.
Of course, we try to work with our dental partners for access, specifically for children on medical assistance is a huge barrier throughout Minnesota.
Yeah.
So this was a creative solution that Prime West came forward, and they approached us and said, hey, would you be interested in exploring this? And Denise was, absolutely. So, because this is a critical need that keeps elevating throughout our community conversations as access to this type of service. So we haven't had the infrastructure or capability to make this type of service available before,
Okay, all
or
right,
support this type of, in this type of way.
okay, thank you.
So our child and teen checkup staff who work regularly with the MA population kids, they've been well aware of the need and have done, you know, what we can to refer, but it's generally 60 miles, 80 miles, 100 miles away, and sometimes there's no opening anywhere in the state. So this will definitely make things much, much easier.
As you stated, these are kids who are not in competition with the local dentist at all. These are kids who are not served at all, period, and they need the service, so it's pretty fantastic.
And I'd just follow up on Commissioner Anderson's question. There is the Rice Foundation who does a fairly strong effort on child dental care in the area. I think they call it something Smiles, if I'm not mistaken. I see some nods out in that. I don't remember all the details of it, but it's just an additional resource for those that maybe aren't being reached. But, and I'm sure we can't reach everybody, but this will help, so.
It's just another option. So
Yep.
that one is a great program and a local access, but the need surpasses their abilities as well. So I think it'll be a nice addition to our community as a second option.
Any other questions or comments? Then I would ask for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Next up, the Resolution 2024-20 Solid Waste Plan, Gary Gear. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. Gary Gear, Environmental Services Director, here before you this morning with the solid waste plan that has been worked on by staff, primarily Ryan Badton, our landfill supervisor, and myself worked together to craft the document and then worked with MPCA staff. There's significant data in statute that checklists, requirements, the information that needs to be required to be in the plan. It's effective for 10 years. The MPCA is given preliminary approval and then final approval given by them following the adoption of the county board resolution that is before you today. So obviously solid waste plan, the stream is predominantly recycling, household hazardous waste, and then MSW at the landfill, yard and brush, education, and any attempts, information to get out and help the public understand the complete package of the solid waste stream and flow. So that's kind of a recap of the plan itself, and what it is before you this morning is the resolution again that would ultimately be the final approval by the MPCA.
Any questions for Gary on Resolution 2024? I'd ask for a motion on adopting that resolution.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion to approve Resolution 2024-20 for the solid waste plan.
So we have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Dwayne Anderson on Resolution 2024-20. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Richard Dale Anderson seconds. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Yeah, since we had over 200 pages of your plan, it's very impressive. And I just figured we should have a little bit more of a discussion about that. I was really impressed with all the things that goes together with a plan like this and how you can break it down, the percentage of different things, as well as some of the major users of that service. Do you have any further comments on that? or-
It is, you have a 200-page document in front of you. It's predominantly a 50-page text document, and then appendices, copies of some of our ordinances, solid waste ordinance, nuisance ordinance, contracts that we have for some of the services that are provided. I think the solid waste stream is handled well, and it's by the board's previous actions through the years that have positioned us to do that. Household hazardous waste, kind of, we don't hear a lot about that, but it's over in its own building, doing its own thing, sometimes a little bit on an island. But that's a real significant program that really helps the solid waste stream, that helps our landfill to keep those items out of the landfill and to keep problem materials out of the landfill, tires, paints, varnishes, all of the electronics, all of the appliances already. So to limit the amount of actual MSW into the landfill is kind of one of the main goals kind of that you would kind of draw out of reading the solid waste plan, and thereby extending its life and reducing the cost for MSW disposal for citizens of the county, because as landfill fills up, there will need to be other options, and they're only going to be more costly for the citizens. So the more we can do to extend the life of the landfill, the better. So maybe that kind of answers your question.
Well, kind of, yes. I was surprised to see some of the top 6 major generators of solid waste, and that healthcare facilities were involved in that, as well as some of the big box stores that we have in our community.
True.
Lots goes on out there that we don't are aware of.
Yes, and it's interesting when you see it in front of you in figures.
And so this resolution, is this an annual resolution or?
No, with the plan, it's a 10-year plan, so it's just a resolution that would be required every 10 years
But-
as we update the plan.
But amendments and changes can happen at any time. For example, our recycling contract will be up for renewal in about 2 years or something.
Absolutely, yep.
effect.
Because this is this is a standalone document, kind of over the top of all of our local controls. Yes.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the motion to accept the resolution 2024-20 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Would you care to sign now, Mr. Chairman?
You can just bring it up here. Is it just one? Yes. Is it going to be in the other?
It's in there. Yeah. We'll get it to you.
All right. All right, up next, the resolution 2024, we got these out of order, 2024-19, vacating a portion of Brower Avenue. Mr. Odens.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, before you, and I've also got maps in your packet of the vacation of a portion of Brower Avenue, which was a road that was never built on the North Shore Drive or the north side of Green Lake. It's an area that probably for many people around here, it's considered the flats. On May 20th, we got a petition from a property owner to vacate a portion of that avenue, which in essence increases their lot size by 1,278 square feet. They want to do some improvements to their driveway, and I would imagine with Lake Shore rules, they do it by a % of their square lot. And so therefore, we do see these from time to time. We have no problem with it. We have no utilities in there. We have no storm sewer in there. There's been many of these that have been done to the west of this. So this is just a continuation as it kind of migrates east until it actually becomes parallel or incorporated in our County Road 30. So with that, Mr. Chair, it's my recommendation to pass Resolution 2024-19, which would vacate a portion of Brower Avenue as described in Exhibit A.
So you heard recommendation from staff regarding resolution 2024-19. To entertain a motion to approve that resolution.
Also moved.
Commissioner Dale Anderson moves. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds.
And then, Mr. Chair, I have a-
You go ahead.
So, when they vacate that, do they have to buy it back then, or is it just never been purchased?
No, we vacate our interest in the property and then it goes back to them.
Okay,
It's been surveyed and platted out by Bonema Survey.
okay, but it was never, the land was never bought from the original landowners or whatever?
There's a process that they go through where I think it probably would go back to the original purchasers if there any record of that,
Okay.
or if they own the majority of the property. I know there's a kind of a hierarchy,
Okay.
but I'm not, I guess I can't answer that for sure, but I do know that this avenue has been vacated. This is just the next one as it works its way east.
Okay, so you don't deal with if they own it or,
No, I don't.
but the county does,
So, yeah,
like the
correct.
auditor's office.
The recorder's office,
Okay.
yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I actually experienced that on a farm that my father purchased in 1967, had an old country schoolhouse on that property at one time. And all I remember of it was there was a pump jack still sitting in that spot that I plowed around until I hit it one time. And finally, we wanted to get rid of that, and we were doing some title work. And what happens is it goes back to the parcel from which it originally came. And so, in that case, it went back to us, because that was the parcel that it came from. So that's generally how they deal it, so I imagine that this property was on the parcel that is asking for the vacation.
Right, and also, we have a process that checks with all the entities, and then it's a checklist that on an application. And then for us, you know, because we're the road authority on the public works side, if we have any issues with storm sewer or water or sewer or anything, and we don't. So we're not the carrier of the ultimate hammer of, no, you don't get it. We're just a part of the process.
Go ahead.
Just to be clear, help me understand that from a tax point of view, and that's probably not your area neither as well, but when you give it back to them, then that will go, change the taxes.
It increases the size of their lot, and I have no idea on this.
What that is,
But I do know as a general rule, if you want to increase the size of your lot, they're not looking to make you richer.
Yep,
They want to add a shed,
yep.
which is impervious. They want to put a spot to park a camper, or whatever the thing is, make a parking lot, or their driveway bigger, or whatever the case is. So that's usually what,
So the bottom line is that I think our tax base will go up just a little bit.
That's what I was thinking.
So,
It's a win-win thing. Okay.
all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the bid award for grading and surfacing. You may continue.
so Mr. Chair, there's 0.4 of a mile from our Diamond Lake County Park northerly. It's our old County Road 4. When we took County Road 4 away from the park and went around the park, this is the last short half mile from the boat landing to County Road 28. What we had done is we had pursued State Park Road account dollars to fund that reconstruction, and then with that, we're gonna add a walking trail to the west side of it, and that would extend our trail that goes around Diamond Lake up to 28. So we were successful with getting State Park Road account, and we had 5 bidders. And the construction of this would be sometime this fall. It's a small project. And we had 5 bidders, and Thielen Excavating of Eden Valley was the low bidder in the amount of $407,770.53. And it's my recommendation to award it to them.
So you heard Mr. Oden's recommendation on the grading and surfacing contract. I'd entertain a motion to accept that recommendation.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to award the project to, is it Thielen Excavating?
Yep.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves to accept staff recommendation on the grading contract. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any questions or comments?
I just have one question. So that, you said there's gonna be a walking trail, that you're gonna apply for or whatever.
No,
right?
yeah, it's gonna be
Or it's
graded
be
out.
part of this? Will that go through the park then, or will it go around the park? or
It
how?
goes, so the trail right now ends at the boat landing.
Yeah.
It goes all the way, the south side, all the way through the park and ends at the boat landing, and then it just kind of stops at the campgrounds. And then it would extend north up to County Road 28.
Okay,
And then we pave the shoulders on 28 and then 4 going all the way up to 10 for the purposes of an on-road bike trail. You can get to Green Lake.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And as I recall, that little stretch of road, we kept and maintained because we have to get access to the Glacial Lake Sanitary Sewer and Water District.
Yes, we have, our main lift is right there.
Is right
Yep, the Candido County, or it's Lift 30, that pumps from the city of Candido pumps into there.
Very good. So, all in favor, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Just want to point out or make a comment, quite a range in bids.
Yep,
And the good news is it came in under and it went all the way up to a 40, over 45% increase in bids, the range was, so like over $200,000.
and just for the record, Thielen has done work for the county before. They haven't for a few years, but they built County Road 41 from the radio station north. They built our County Road 7 down in south of Raymond. They've done work. I think they built one over on the northeastern part of the county as well. So this is, you know, we're very confident in this, in this contractor and the bid.
So all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. But what, do you have another one?
I have
We
one
do.
more.
Keep going.
Striping.
I want to go back to Diamond Lake for just a moment when you're done.
All right, the last of the bid awards that I have is our annual, edge line, wet reflective striped, edge line. We do about 50 miles a year. This year, we have, and we usually put about 350,000. This is a federally funded highway safety improvement program that we apply for striping, and, we've been successful every year for 10 years, I believe. And so it's my recommendation to award the contract to Sir Lines-A-Lot of Edina in the amount of $338,766.75.
So you heard recommendation from staff on the award for painting. I'd entertain a motion to accept that.
Mr. Chair, I also move.
Commissioner Dale Anderson moves. Do I hear a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Berg seconds. Any discussion?
I was just wondering, I haven't seen our new TV monitors light up here. Can you put this on there, or are they working? They're not working at all? Yet, oh, they look really good. Okay. Anyway, I just want to, then my comment is that this is quite a bit of road taking place for the public, yeah.
Yeah, the edge line, yeah, we, and it's effective, it's been effective. If you're ever driven when it's raining and that, it's a 6-inch white wet reflective, and with the porcelain beads in it, it is really, the reflectivity is pronounced, very pronounced when it's wet, so.
Commissioner Dale.
Just a comment. I just think this is probably the best thing that we do because, I mean, like you said, when it's raining, it's a bear not to be able to see that line. And I think we're saving people from going off the road by doing this, and that's a great thing.
It keeps you almost can see the white lines, just stay between the white lines, kind of a.
So all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, same sign? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to bring this up now. You can have your seat if you wish, Mr. Odens. But last Friday night, Friday afternoon, fairly late, I received a phone call from Middle Fork Watershed District regarding Diamond Lake. That's why I'm bringing it up now. You reminded me of it. In that there was some social media chatter about a LJ bloom out in the lake. And so the watershed started making phone calls, and being Friday afternoon and being summer, he was getting a lot of voicemails. And so he texted me asking me whether or not I had any ideas. And so I contacted Administrator Baker, and within minutes, they were getting a response to putting out a warning about the LJ bloom. It can be really dangerous to pets and kids. And so kudos to the Middle Fork and to staff for making that announcement. So, all right, next up, Safe Avenues. Jen, there's Jen. Welcome.
How is everybody?
Good.
Good.
Good. Okay, I brought some handouts. I'm just gonna pass them down. So thank you for letting me come before you. It's been a couple years, I think, since I've been here.
Can I stop you for just a second and state your name and who you're representing for anybody who may be watching?
Okay. My name is Jen Johnson, and I am the Executive Director of Safe Avenues.
Thank you.
So it's been a couple years since I've been here, so I thought it'd be a good idea to come and bring you guys the latest statistics of what our agency has been up to for the last year. So if you look at the chart, this chart is a representation of the services that we have provided free of charge to citizens in Candy, Ojai County. So the total number of clients that we served in the last year was 1,137. And then further breakdown is, of that number, 582 of them were domestic violence victims, 94 of them stayed within our shelter, 81 of them were sexual assault victims, 11 of them were trafficking or exploitation victims, and then 380 of them were clients that utilized our Parenting Time Center, which is called Harmony Visitation Center. So I think the other statistics that are in black give you a little bit more idea of the types of services that we provide and some other interesting facts about it. So about a third of the clients that we serve have a disability of some sort, whether that's a physical disability, a cognitive, or a mental disability. We provided 19 well, we don't actually do the forensic exams, the hospital does them, but we provide staff through the shelter to show up at that hospital and provide support for the victim and then help them through the rest of that process. And we did that for 19 victims of sexual assault. One of the statistics that I think is really important to look at is the number of protective orders. So we assisted not 417 people, but 417 times with a protective order. So that could be an OFP, it could be an HRO, it could be a dismissal of a protective order, but we assisted with 417 times with a protective order. And I think that's really interesting because last year, this number was really high, and so I looked last year, and that number last year was 161. And then I looked pre-COVID, and that number was around 220. So this number has really shot up, and we have been talking about that for probably the last year or two, about how a lot of the services that people are seeking within the county have to do with protective orders, and our advocates are spending a lot of time in court assisting those people through that process. So the bottom part is the victimization type, and it breaks down just some nuanced types of how they're a victim, whether it's through domestic violence, whether it's sexual assault as a child or sexual assault as an adult, how many stalking cases there have been. And stalking is another thing that has gone up, which is why the protective orders naturally would go up as well. So in addition to that, we also track the number of calls that we receive. And so on average, last year, we received about 3,926 crisis calls, which means that the people called in crisis at that moment and needed assistance right then. And then in addition to that, we, on average, have about 11,000 calls that we take within a year. So this number is decreased a little bit. And I really feel that that's because people are showing up in person now that COVID's over. So we aren't getting as many calls, but we are getting more physical people in our office, if that makes sense. So I wanted to, every year we ask for funding, and this year our funding request is the same as it has been for the last several years, which is $40,000. And I wanted to give you guys the opportunity to ask any questions about it, and also offer you guys the opportunity to come and tour any of our facilities if you want to.
Thank you for that vital information. Anybody have any questions for Jen? I have a question regarding you talked about the assist with protective orders that had gone way up.
Yep.
Is there more awareness? Is there more incidences? Or do you have an idea of why those calls have gone up?
No, I can't pinpoint why or what caused it. I can just tell you that the chatter in our industry from like across the state and other sister programs is very similar. They've all seen an increase in protective orders and requests, and it really kind of started around, like I said, started around COVID, and I think a lot of it had to do with the shelter in place where people felt that they couldn't leave their situation, and then after that, it was, maybe they couldn't afford to leave or those types of things, but since then, the crimes that we've seen have been more violent. Like the victims we work with, their situations, it's much more violent and it's much more complicated. I'd hate to call anything just a simple domestic violence case, but there isn't such a thing anymore. They're all very complicated. So I think that that's why we've seen an increase in them, but I don't have an exact pinpoint. I just know that others in the state that do this work have said they've seen an increase in that as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to commend you for coming forward with this information. I think it's really important that taxpayers know where their dollars are going. And I also have a feeling that the general population doesn't realize these kind of services are needed out there and how many people are using them. Just really excellent information. I do have a couple of questions of what are, and now, you don't work alone doing this too. You're working closely with public health and human services, as well as corrections, as well as our local sheriffs and police departments as well, in dealing with these issues. But maybe next time, if you have some more information, I really like graphs and charts and numbers like this.
Sure.
History, this is a snapshot from last year, but what has been the trends and stuff? And along with that, question is, what are some of the needs you see going forward, or are you expecting the trends to change in different areas? I hear so much about, for example, bullying, and those numbers are small on this, but some of the other numbers are huge.
Yes. So every year I've sent one of these. So I've been at Safe Avenues for the last 13 years.
Yep.
Every year I've sent one of these. I can send them all to you if you want, if you like charts. I like charts too.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if you do, I will send them to you and you
Put
can
them
look at
together
them.
somehow,
Yeah, it is very interesting because some of the time, sometimes the numbers are cyclic, like you might have more domestic violence victims and then less sexual assault victims, but then the next year it goes up. So what I can tell you is that this is consistently the numbers that we've seen within maybe like 100 different categories, but it's remained pretty much steady since I've been here. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I will send you all the charts if you want them.
All right.
Send them to you.
Commissioner
You go ahead.
And then Administrator Baker.
Go ahead.
Commissioner.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, thanks for coming here for this. So if somebody has one of these issues that you guys provide the services for, how do they find out about you? I mean, how do they know you're around? I think I've heard you on the radio, but usually it's in the background and I'm not really paying attention. But do you advertise on, and you obviously advertise on radio, but then how do people find out about you? What are the other ways they find out about you?
So a lot of it is done through partners and referrals. The saying of people don't know that they need a service until they actually need a service, and then they find out about it through court. So we have a lot of really strong partnerships, and one of those is with the Candy County Attorney's Office. And so we work closely with them. They refer clients. Law enforcement refers a lot of clients. We work very closely with both the Sheriff's Department and the PD. We work with family services. We just have a huge network of partners. And a lot of the referrals, not only that, but we have like MOUs that are set up between like the hospitals. So when they get a victim, they call and we show up. So that network has really been a good referral source. We also have a program that monitors court. So say there's a domestic violence call, law enforcement shows up. One of their processes is to send that ICR to us, and then we reach out to the victim and say, hey, if you didn't know these services were here, here they are, they're free of charge. We'd love to work with you and assist you if you want. And sometimes they tell us no, and sometimes they tell us yes. It really just depends. So there's a lot of referrals. We've also done media campaigns, we distribute brochures, we put up flyers in bathrooms in a lot of different places. We've done billboards in English and Spanish. So we've done a lot of different things over the years. But regardless, like I said, our numbers have pretty much stayed the same, just different in different categories. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of word of mouth. They all seem to know each other. So I can tell you that there's a lot of word of mouth.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Administrator Baker.
Jenna, thank you for this update. I always appreciate hearing it, even in the other county I was in.
Yep.
So moving forward, we can always invite Jen back once a year to give the yearly report. One thing I'd like you to maybe, just because we have the media here, is the donation store. I think that's something that I know I wasn't aware of prior to coming into county government, and now I'm aware of it, and I have given donations. But I think that's such a good story to tell. So if you want to update the board on that, I think that's such a heartwarming story.
So we had received a call from somebody that wanted to donate a building. It was a big, very big garage. And they donated so we agreed and tried to figure out the logistics of moving this building, picking it up and moving it. So it came from Calvary across the street from us and moved it on over and that process. And we put it into place on our property, and then we gutted the building, and all of our staff worked at decorating it, redoing the inside, setting it all up. And what we did is we turned this space into a boutique. And so when our clients need items from cookware to tennis shoes to bedding, any of those things that people donate to us, we've put it into this boutique so they can go out there and they can shop. And they get it all for free. There's no cost to them because there's no cost to us. And they really enjoyed it, because before we had this really tiny space that all of that stuff was, and we were really limited on what we could take. And so with us utilizing this boutique space, it's really enabled us to meet a lot more client needs and children's needs. And like some of the fun stories about it is we had this little girl, she was just going into kindergarten, and it was her first time shopping in the boutique, and she had gone out there with her mom, and she, everything in there is used. And she was like, I am going to be the prettiest girl in school. Just so excited to get used clothes, and, because her mom didn't have money to go and buy brand new clothes. So the boutique enables us to continue to meet client needs in more unique ways. And so when they go to get a new apartment or new housing and they have nothing, we can fulfill all of that, including beds and like dressers and other things. And we work very closely with the Home to Home program and get items through there, and also New to You for our clients as well. So, but yeah, if you haven't been out to the shelter in a while, it would be a good thing to come and tour and see the boutique. I can't put into words how life-changing it has been for the clients that we serve.
All right. Anything else from anybody? Well, thank you very much for that informative presentation.
All right, thank you.
Should we let's take a little break. Let's take a 5-minute recess, and we'll resume at about, I can't see the clock here, but about 10 minutes to 10. We will reconvene the Kaneohe County Board of Commissioners. Next up on the agenda is an update on the 16-bed behavioral health facility. Administrator Baker.
Good morning. Kelsey Baker, Kaneohe County Administrator. I was just making sure the mics were on with this new change in technology. So sorry about that. So before you in your board packet, we have an update on the 16-bed behavioral health facility. Andy Thorson, our facilities director, and I, and then our two commissioners within our facilities committee, which is Board Chair Roger Imdike and Commissioner Dale Anderson, have been discussing all county facilities. And we pretty much bring up the 16-bed quite frequently. We are fully reimbursed for our facilities maintenance staff that we employ to maintain that facility. Andy's been before the board regarding the roof situation that we had to redo. We've had a very good working relationship over the years, but it is fully paid off, and we have, in 2018, the state made the final lease payment, so now we're just doing operating costs. And so really, we're at a point where we could continue this relationship, but really, it's sometimes a headache to receive invoices, or not to receive invoices, and then for invoices to be paid. It's really a lot of lag time. And so we don't get reimbursed in a timely fashion, I'll say. And so it would just be more seamless if we were to go this route. It would be a transfer of the facility between the state and the county. And a little bit of history on this. When the state went out for RFPs for behavioral health facilities, we were one government entity, and there was another city government entity that opened up and built these facilities for behavioral health units. All the other organizations that built these facilities were private organizations. We are one of two government entities. And so I think it would be in our best interest to maybe go separate ways. It would, like I said, it would streamline some of these processes. It would help our facilities maintenance and streamline some of the services that we provide to other county buildings. And it would just simplify operations overall with the state and the county. I think it's better off the state has facility maintenance folks here for other state buildings, so it's not like they're having to hire on an FTE to maintain this facility now. They already have somebody based out of Wilmer that would maintain it. So it would be kind of a seamless transfer of ownership. Andy and I had a Zoom call with the state a couple weeks ago asking these questions, if this would be doable. The state, they didn't know right off the bat. But they did say that it could be a gifting process with the transfer of ownership. And so we're not going to be, if we were to sell this to the state, we're not going to be making any money. It's going to be that dollar transfer that you see among government entities. So today we're looking more for discussion amongst the board. If you feel comfortable with this, do you have any reservations? This would be something I would probably be bringing to the board at our July 18th meeting for action. Any questions or comments?
Any comments from anybody or questions?
I guess for me, it sounds like a good idea. Thanks, Mr. Chair, sorry. But I think it would be a good idea since they've already made all the payments basically, right? And so, yeah, it would just be easier for us, I think, in the long term.
Anybody else? Commissioner Burton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. More or less comments and questions, but maybe you can try and answer some of my comments I have as well. I have some concerns a little bit about, if we are owning this property, that to be sure that it's continued to be used for the mental health services that's being provided. And it'd be one thing if we, give it back for $1, let's say, for example. But I would like some reassurance, but I know working with DHS, it's pretty hard to get some reassurance. But it's really important that this continued to be used in this way it's been used already. It's so important to meet the needs of our, the mental health needs in our region of the 18 counties that originally it was built to be used that way. So that's important, and I really hate the idea of giving up some property, thinking we might have a little bit of leverage and more input of what services are being provided, but I'm understanding that that doesn't really make that much difference. Am I correct?
Correct, and that's a really good question. I think it's an unfortunate, and that's because we don't have a say in the business side of things. We have a say in the operational and the maintaining of the facility, and that's where that line is drawn. I think there would be we could do a lot of conversations within our contacts with the state, implying that if something were to happen down the road with this facility, that the county maybe would have a say in what would go into that. I would hope, I agree with you, that this behavioral health facility would never close, because it is a need within our community and within the state. And so we could have those conversations in the next couple weeks before we bring this back to board. But I think that is a really good question. But at this time, we don't have a say in the business side of things anyways. It's just purely that operational and maintenance.
Okay.
So that is a really good point, and I think what would really chap our backside is if we gave this to the state for $1, and 3 years from now, they decide they either can't staff it or don't need it anymore, and they close it, and then they turn around and sell the building to the highest bidder for whatever dollars. So, you know, I wonder if there'd be consideration for that happening and within a certain period of time, that if such and such happens, we have a sliding scale of us being reimbursed for part of the sale cost, because you're right, we don't have any say, so it could happen a year from now, it could happen 20 years from now, but, and then you could sunset that agreement, but it's an idea to motivate. Commissioner Brady.
Mr. Chair, thank you. We do have a working relationship, at least over in history, you know, with the regional treatment center and so forth. And that was the other way around. So let's hope that it goes that way. What I heard was that we're made whole at this point, or we will be.
We will be made whole.
So with the shingling, the big bill for that, that's going to be taken care of as part of the lease
Yes.
as well. So any ongoing expenses we have right now, it would be taken.
It would all be made whole. Yep, we would absolutely make sure that would happen. I think to the chair's point, I don't know if we could, if the building were to be sold, I don't know if we could ever get half, because we've always been reimbursed for what we've put in. We maybe haven't been fully reimbursed, like if it's Andy's time or little odds and end things here and there. But we've been 100% reimbursed for our time that we've put into the facility. I think there could be though language in there that if this were to be sold, could the county have first dibs on what would go into that facility? And that's something, like I said, that we could talk about that with our state reps in the next 2 weeks.
Mr. Chair, may I follow up? Yeah. And I have the feeling for many years, it's such a hassle to run it this way, you know, that we have to do all this kind of billing back and forth, and it's been ongoing, and I understand as well as that the feeling is we're better off in this direction.
I think when I came, this was like one of the first emails that I had received. And I'm looking back at Larry, because that was, it's always been a headache. It's always been a headache, communicating back and forth. And not that it has nothing to do about the intent of the facility. I think it's more of just that administrative. So we would invoice things and not getting reimbursed for months, and making sure that we're tied out. It's a lot of work for Melissa's position and Karen Anderson, our CFO's position, making sure that everything is tied out. Andy's documenting the time and things like that. So it's a lot of administrative work on our end.
So you make a really good point about, you know, we don't have any control, but I would still maintain that if 3 years from now they closed, us having to buy back something that we once owned would be really a hard explanation to follow up on. And because if they close 3 years from now, we don't do anything with them, we can give the building to HRA, we can give it, you know, we could repurpose it for other things too. So we should keep that in the back of our mind as we carry on this discussion. Anything else? All right, well, thank you for that update. Well, Kelsey makes her way back to the seat. I am going to read a letter. I received this late last week, and I've passed it out to press and board here. I received this letter in US mail late last week, and unfortunately was unable to, I didn't have an electronic version. I didn't have time to get it scanned and sent to the administrator to be included in the packet, so I apologize for that. But as some of you are already aware, or we've been hearing about it for some time, I know at the Association of Minnesota Counties, we've been having conversations about this, but the Department of Health, this letter comes from the Minnesota Office of Management and Budget, and the Department of Health is making some changes, and I'll just read parts of the letter. It says, "Dear Board Chair, it went to all 87 counties in the state of Minnesota. The state of Minnesota is establishing a new executive branch agency, the Minnesota Department of Children, Youth, Families, DCYF. It's just one more acronym for us to learn. And it starts on July 1st, yesterday, bringing together programs from existing state agencies to center and sharpen state government's focus on early childhood, youth investment, and family well-being programs. The creation of DCYF is a bold plan to better coordinate and resource the systems that serve children, youth, and families, investing in the vision and mission that Minnesota is a state where all children can and do thrive." So that happened yesterday, started yesterday. Going forward, and I'm going to paraphrase some of this or skip over some of this, going forward, there'll be other responsibilities that will get transferred to the Department of Children, Youth, and Families over the next, phased in January 25, and then again next July in 25. There will be further transitions to some departments that are coming forward. So I'm going to skip down to where it says county engagement. We value counties and tribal nations as key partners in the delivery of human services. With feedback from and engagement with tribes and with the county working group, the administration developed a recommendation to the legislature that will establish an ongoing DCYF Intergovernmental Advisory Committee to provide advice, consultation, and recommendations to the DCYF Commissioner on the planning, design, and administration and funding of services to youth, children, and families. We look forward to the beginning of this collaboration, and they go on to say a few more things. And this is signed sincerely, Jody Harpstead, Commissioner of the Department of Human Services, and Tiki Brown, Commissioner Designee for the Minnesota Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Now, I don't know that this will affect, I'm sure your Health and Human Services Committee has probably already had conversations about this. I think for now, it's just, you got a different designation, but probably the same staff working. So just, they felt it was important that people be aware of this, and so that's why I bring it forward. So, thank you. No action required, just strictly information. All right, next up on the agenda, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe in the future, as things kind of settle out, everybody get a handle what's happening at DHS, that we get an update as well as for a full board coming up in maybe in a month or two, if it would work.
And if I may, if you do recall, our director did send an email out and has brought this up at our last work session, and did send an email out back in May that we had a staff on that task force that's representing Candy Ojai County. So that was communicated and sent out to the board back in May as well.
And Mr. Chair, yeah, and maybe that staff person could give us an update too as well. That'd be great.
All right, any other comments? All right, thank you. Next up on the agenda, the Primacy Strategy Group. Jordan Haggart, please come forward and for the record, state your name and who you're representing.
You betcha. My name is Jordan Haggart. I'm here on behalf of Primacy Strategy Group, a government relations and strategic communications firm based in the Twin Cities with offices in North Dakota and Washington, D.C. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Administrator Baker, and Director Odens for having me this morning. I'm very excited to be here as a kid from Granite Falls and what I like to say, an adopted son of Candy, Ojai County. On a personal note, thank you especially for giving my bosses the excuse to send me here for the 4th of July. I'm very happy to be here. Want to give a brief overview and kind of update on where we are at and what we have been up to date with regard to the work and our pursuit of securing federal funding dollars. This spring, we entered into agreement, Primacy Strategy Group entered into agreement with the county to execute federal lobbying services on its behalf to secure federal funding for some of its priority projects. In your packets, you should have an outline of the scope of services in that agreement, which include, support for when elected officials and staff come out to Washington, D.C., organizing meetings with our federal representatives and their staff, ongoing policy monitoring, as well as regular strategy meetings to make sure that we're being both proactive in our planning and reactive to real-time developments as they come in. What you'll see is there are 4 general buckets of federal funding available, 2 of which I think are most pertinent for our purposes. The first of which are congressionally directed spending, more colloquially known as earmarks. For a quick background, in 2010, a moratorium was placed on earmarks, and earmarks, I should back up. Earmarks are essentially specific funding amounts for specific projects that are submitted by senators and members of the House of Representatives, which allows them to kind of identify, because they know best what their communities need, those projects and get them into the federal budget. In 2020, congressionally directed spending earmarks were reinstituted along with some reforms to build out some transparency and accountability. So that, I think, is essentially going to be our primary path that we'll pursue in getting funding for these county projects. And then second of which is federal competitive grants, which are rolled out and opened on an annual basis, differing in times throughout the year. I'm sure it won't be a surprise to any of you that the federal government can be a blunt instrument and not always the easiest to navigate. So we are here to help you in that process. There's also, of course, federal formula grants and block grants, which are more prescribed in their funding and generally flow through the states. So some of these projects will go straight to the feds to get money to come directly to the county, and others we may need to work through the states, the state governments, which the federal government money flows through. Both of which will require us to plan, apply, and then advocate. So that's kind of the way you can think about this process, is in 3 phases. Right now, obviously, at the onset, we're in the planning stage. That's going to require us to identify what the projects you as a county believe are at top of the list, drill down on the details as to what the project entails, the funding amount, and from there we go to the application and really then begin the advocacy work. The advocacy work will include staff-to-staff contacts, getting our federal representatives out to these projects to tour them so they can see firsthand the impact they're having on their community, and then at the right time, getting principal-to-principal meetings so that our senators are hearing directly from local elected officials. The old adage is really as cheesy as it is true, that the world belongs to those who show up, and in Washington, D.C., that is especially true. So I think you all are on the right track here in showing up and getting this process started. To date, working with Administrator Baker and Director Odens, we've identified a preliminary list of what we think are some good projects to pursue federal funding for. I think in the coming months, we'll need to hammer out those details like I discussed, so that, to give you a sense, the earmark process is part of the annual congressional budget process. It begins in earnest every year, first quarter, and depending on how productive or unproductive Congress is, usually wraps up by the end of the year. So I think in the next 6 months, what the county should really be aiming to do is get our ducks in a row so that we're ready come first quarter 2025 to submit these projects and then begin our advocacy in earnest. That's my 30,000-foot view of what I've got for you all, and would be happy to take any questions beyond that.
Well, thank you, Jordan. Appreciate that presentation, and I just, I'm thinking back to the fall of 2022, when we had a kind of a spitball session as a board about how to best utilize some of our ARPA funding. And one of the ideas that came forth was the suggestion that we might benefit from lobbyists in Washington. And for a little county like Candioi County, it seemed like rather a bold and perhaps some might say foolish move for somebody as small as us. A lot of big cities and counties do this routinely. But I had been to Colorado, it's almost 2 years ago now, to the National Association of Counties meeting, and I attended several workshops, and almost on coming home, there was the NACO newspaper, and one Sunday morning over coffee, I'm reading it, and they kind of outlined the IIJA opportunities within there. There was Chrissy grants, I mean, there was 2 pages of grants. One that particularly caught my eye was a railroad crossing elimination grant. And I mentioned it to Public Works Director Odens. And long and the short of it is, we did put in application. And then now in spring of '23 or September, when we started talking about, go back to September of '21, when I was out to Washington for a transportation fly-in, is when I first met Mr. Haggart. And I thought, well, could they be a possibility for us? And so when we finalized our application or our how we would spend these ARPA dollars, I was now more comfortable in, even though we're a small county, to pursuing the use of a lobbyist. And that comfort level came even more clear when we considered that last March, Public Works Director Odens went out to Washington DC, and with the help of Primacy Group, met with Federal Rail Authority. And the long and the short of it is, before we were even engaged with Primacy Group, we were successful in gaining a $4.8 million grant from the federal government for the railroad, for the bridge over the 2 railroad crossings connecting County Road 5 to County Road 55. Now, we had tried for 5 straight legislative sessions to get that funding for that bridge and had failed on it. And this happened within a very short period of time. So, as Mr. Haggard says, being there makes a difference, and Colin Peterson made that very clear years ago when I first became commissioner. So I was not part of the conversation for the projects that you do, but I have complete confidence in staff and identifying those projects in which we can be, that you can help us be effective at. So thank you for being here, and I'm going to give anybody else an opportunity to either comment or ask questions of Mr. Haggard. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. This partnership, I think, is an excellent idea, and you made really a good point that we're not looking at local tax dollars to get a lobbyist or work with your organization at all. And going forward with this wish list, I'm looking at this wish list, and it's an excellent wish list. And I think it's more than wish, it's a need. We say, we wish we can get this for this need, because there's some really big needs locally that we have on that list. Do we want to share some of that information?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, okay. And
Mr.
I didn't make up this list. The group did, and you did, and I appreciate that. But they're right on, a Family Resource Center, Prairie Lakes Youth Program Facility. I mean, that's a very big need. Outdoor recreation and trail amenities, water tower rehab, Nest Lake and Diamond Lake dam replacement, housing, law enforcement, security, cameras, radios, upgrades, emergency management equipment improvements, IT, online permitting software, and the list could go on and on. And I'm sure we'll be adding to it, am I correct? It depends upon what's available as well. And when I look at Prairie Lakes Youth Program, I also think, mental health services is such a big tool, so opportunities come up there as well. But this is exciting, we'll cross our fingers, and looking forward to working with you.
Very much so.
Yeah, and the opportunity through the different programs, I mentioned IIJA and Inflation Reduction Act and other congressionally directed spending and community directed, 2 different programs, same acronym, CDS, but one is Senate and one is House. And so those opportunities are there now, but with the coming election, everything can change. And so it's one of those things about striking while the iron is hot. So.
Absolutely. One thing I should have said at the onset too is, with these differing buckets, they're not mutually exclusive. So candidly, the strategy we would recommend and have discussed to date is, pursuing the funding through earmarks while also monitoring and being ready to go when notice of funding opportunities come up that are applicable to these projects as well. And so, and you're not limited to one earmark request, I should say, too. And so providing a collection of projects for the senators and congresswomen to choose from puts Candiota County at an advantage in that it gives diversity of selection, because when they're going through this process, the senators in particular will want geographic diversity and where they're sending the earmarks throughout the state, as well as project diversity. They'll want some traditional infrastructure, they'll want mental health services included, they'll want some law enforcement stuff, what have you. And so I think the broader we can build out the list and be strategic in where we're pursuing that federal funding, the more successful we'll be able to be.
Yeah, actually, the library in New London, which opened up within the last year, I think received a $600,000 or $650,000 CDS grant through Senator Klobuchar's office.
And we, just a small shameless plug for Primacy Strategy Group, actually work with LifeLink 3 here, and we're able to secure a $1.2 million earmark in FY24. So, along with about $80 million in other federal earmarks.
Did you have something?
Yeah, I think, and we met with Jordan, Mel and I, and we invited Executive Director Holly Booth with Prairie Lakes to our meeting last Friday to kind of really dive in and give those detailed answers to Jordan regarding Prairie Lakes Youth Facility. And the conversation kind of led to like, are we in a good stage right now? And what Jordan was saying too, and we're kind of in this planning stage. So we're really hitting, for the timeline purposes, really good, because we can schedule those tours, we can continue gathering information, fine tuning that, our wish list, maybe narrowing some things down, but maybe in the future, we'll have more of an in-depth work session regarding, so what's our main priorities? Kind of what's in this first tier, what's in the second tier, maybe a third tier. Maybe we want to go really hard with Prairie Lakes Youth Facility and really strategize and get those tours settled in. But maybe, year 3 is we're going to focus on housing and those smaller dollar amount grants or earmarks, things like that. One thing we really talked about too, and maybe Mel can chime in, is the outdoor recreation and trail amenities. And that's something that we just finished. We just finished our trail plan. And I think now is the time to capitalize on that. We want people to come to Candiota County. We have great amenities. We have great trails here. And how do we just capitalize on that and get the branding? It's more or less, we have, the tools and the resources here, but we need help with that branding. And there are other communities within the state of Minnesota that probably PSG has worked with that can help us with that branding side of things. And that will just help the tourism side. And so there's really, I left that meeting Friday feeling really energized and excited for the things that we can do. We have a lot of really cool opportunities ahead of us because we already have those tools and resources right here in Candiota County. It's just we have to now take that next step and continue that planning. We can't just be done here. And so we have to kind of push ourselves to continue this work so that we can capitalize on what we already have.
Yes, and if I may, one of the things I took out of the meeting the other day that I found, made me really optimistic is the more we work together too, the more I understand the nuances and the narratives. So for Prairie Lakes in particular, I didn't realize, this is a statewide value. As a Granite kid, I always just think Wilmer is our regional hub, the Minneapolis, Southwest Minnesota. But knowing that piece will help in our application build that compelling narrative, really, to get it at the forefront of our federal lawmakers and make them understand this isn't a wish, this is a need, to your point, Commissioner.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that informative presentation. We look forward to hearing the developments on the projects that have been suggested and any others that might come up. In fact, as Administrator Baker is talking about trails, I was not yet a commissioner, so over 12 years ago, maybe 14 years ago, I testified at the Minnesota Legislature for the trail between the country stop in New London and Sibley. We still don't have it. So, and then you can add clean water to that. I mean, being at sort of the top of the watersheds, the opportunities for for clean water. So the needs are endless, the opportunities are endless. We look forward to working with you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Happy to be a partner.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, administrative updates, appointments, calendars, and committee reports. Dwayne, should we start with you today?
Yep. So I had about 5 meetings, I guess, since our last board meeting. Most of them are basically routine. I think people are in the mode of summer and they just want to get out of the meetings. But, so we had a Pioneer Land Library meeting. That was basically a routine meeting. Afterwards was kind of nice because I went downtown with Commissioner Anderson. It was Wilmerfest was going on, so we went downtown to get a bite to eat, and it was kind of fun to see the businesses and all the activities going on downtown. The 25th, they had a board governance training meeting, and I don't know, that went well, I guess, I think. Just told, my, kind of my opinions on being a county commissioner or whatever, and all the activities that we do, and, kind of what our role is. And then I look forward to hearing back from them and having that session that we're gonna follow up with later, I believe, so. Then I had a Drug-Free Coalition meeting on June 26th. That was basically a routine meeting. On that same day, I had a AIS task force meeting, and that was just kind of giving updates on, the people that do inspections on boats and stuff in different lakes in the county, and just kind of how many hours and how many inspections they've done up to that point. Then on the 27th, there was UCAP meeting. I attended it via Zoom because I had a lot of stuff going on. It's summer, and so I just, it was a lot easier just to attend it via Zoom. So I did that, and that was basically another routine meeting. And then yesterday, we would have had a broadband committee meeting, but it was canceled because too many people are on vacations and stuff because it's the July 4th week. So that's basically my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. We'll go to the other Commissioner Anderson.
Well, Dwayne kind of got most of mine.
Sorry.
Don't apologize. So we haven't had that very many days since the last.
Right.
This meeting.
Well, yeah, it isn't very much, but yeah, I had a meeting with the library, same as Dwayne talked about. And then the governance training, I thought was very interesting. Interesting to be able to say what we're thinking and how we feel the county is going and how we're doing as commissioners. I think that was a really interesting hour. I thought it went like a blink. I mean, I was thinking, geez, a whole hour we're gonna stand and talk, but it went fast, and it was really interesting to talk to that guy. My other big thing was tourism was canceled today for the same, on Mondays for the same thing that Dwayne said, everybody's out for 4th of July. I did have a meeting with Dover Township last night that I went to. It was their regular meeting, but I just was asked to come. Their biggest and only really concern is planning and zoning and building permits. And I think we just need to keep doing them baby steps of trying to get the public a little more informed and the townships a little more informed. And they're really interested in doing something like that to get a little more information out on that. But other than that, that's really all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This time I have not as many to talk about like I did last time, and when I had a report out. This time, after our last board meeting, I had a Prairie Lakes Youth Program board meeting, and it was a very interesting meeting with all the things that's taken place there just recently. And it was quite a long meeting, but a very good meeting moving forward. My Woodland Centers meeting was canceled at the last minute because something else came up apparently for them. And I had an opportunity, actually, we got invited as a board to go to the Rescue Squad building for a demonstration about pepper bombs for the sheriff's and police department from one of the providers that sells that different kind of equipment. It was a very interesting experience to understand what's involved in that, and actually got a chance to shoot one of the weapons that they use the pepper bombs with. And they have lasers on them, and they're very accurate, and they try really hard to be very careful. And these pepper bombs was an interesting thing. and there's a lot of training that goes with it. There's kind of a smoke thing that comes up, and it can be, it's almost like tear gas in a sense. But you have to be really careful with them, but they're so accurate, and they have different, like I said, different kind of devices to use this with. So you can have a personal one kind of, or you can have a semi-automatic one that from a distance from, several hundred or 100 feet, you know, you could, with the laser, you can hit a side mirror on a car. I mean, it's that accurate. It was very interesting. But it was good to see that our law enforcement is going to be well-equipped and that they're getting the training and that they will be using different ways of dealing with the public that are going to be safer and yet to be able to control the situation. So that was a very positive experience. I also was part of the Board of Governors meeting that we all were involved with at different times. It was very good, and I'm looking forward to this as we go forward and working on many different aspects. And then Aaron Backman's retirement, as well as an EDC meeting on the 26th, where we finalized and narrowed down to 4 individuals, and as you probably already heard about those individuals who will be interviewing for that positions to replace Aaron. So that was very interesting to do that. And at Prairie Lakes Youth Center, since you're all aware of that, a youth passed away and died there, and they had a memorial for him. And it was, luckily the weather was perfect, and it was outdoors, and it involved staff and residents there, and a very moving experience for the group. You know, as they talked about, the staff and residents are family, and they are a family for each other, and being supportive. So it was set up because with the secure part, you know, the residents on that side were behind a fence, but they brought chairs out to be part of it. And then the other side, they had microphones and speakers for the other residents that were involved in the non-secure side of the program. So very, very well done. And I think it really moves forward with healing. And this is a chance they have since we do have some time today, a garden, and it's a memorial garden that youth can go there and plant a plant. They can pick out a plant and plant a plant that to think of, it could be a family member or a loved one or a stranger that you met that had an impact on you, and you'd plant something there. Well, we didn't think that would be so important as a day like we had then, that a youth was involved, and that was a memorial, and they had a nice plant for that person and that they took part in planting. So it was a very moving, very interesting, and a good meeting. And Tammy Goldenstein retired, and I attended, as well as some of the other people on the board, her retirement meeting after 31 years, I believe, right? So it was kind of like old home weeks, seeing some of the people there, and it was a very good retirement, and we wish her the best. So that's it.
All right, Administrator Baker?
On the agenda is the Road and Bridge work session. I've worked with Mel, we're proposing be next Tuesday, July 9th at 9 a.m. So if that would work for you all, if I can get a shaking nod. Doesn't work for you then, Dale? Would the afternoon work?
I can maybe make it work. Let me do some checking, but I'm supposed to be
That's the
there.
9th, right? Yeah, the afternoon, well, we have, the morning works as long as it's over by late morning, because we have KCC Advisory Board.
Yeah, we figured we'd be done by noon.
Yeah, 11 o'clock, 2 hours maybe.
I can probably still make it work. Let's just plan on it.
So you'll send out an invite right away, so we don't add something to our calendar.
When I get to it, yep.
Well, I can do it.
Okay.
I'll just.
Okay.
And then Dave Amick, the individual that we've been working with the board governance training, so last Tuesday, just to update the public on that, all 5 commissioners were interviewed by Mr. Amick for an hour, including myself. Was a little bit different style interview, just administrator to administrator, more or less. And then he is going to kind of analyze all of the answers. We did a questionnaire for all of the department heads that wasn't mandatory. They had the option to fill out this questionnaire, kind of seeing how the board functions. And so I think it will be a really good learning curve for everyone moving forward, and hopefully we'll have more of a guideline of what it means to be a commissioner, an administrator, and department head, and things like that. So I'm looking forward to what the future will bring. And so he's asked if we can look at a date, maybe in August or September, that he would do a work session with the board. It wouldn't have to be a board meeting. It can be in the afternoon or a separate date. And I think maybe I'll just work with each commissioner on a date and finalize that and send them a few dates, because I think he's a busy man, you all are busy. I think we'll have to kind of look at more than one option. So I know a few of your schedules fairly well, and so Dwayne might have the busiest schedule. And so I'll kind of look at some dates and times, and I'll give those over to Dave, and we can work on that, or if you had anything else to say.
I would just, I think he's asking for about 4 hours, so to try to do it in the same day as a board meeting would be maybe a bit challenging for the length of the day, because we don't know but we have the other Tuesdays. So if we had a Tuesday, an off Tuesday, either the second or fourth Tuesday, in either of those 2 months, would be a good option, I think. I don't know, if 4 of us are here now, we could look at those, and if. No, just a sort of a,
So that's where I
An
can
idea.
kind of work on that with you all and kind of figure out some dates. We had to reschedule our Prairie Lakes Youth Tour, and so I've worked with Holly on that, and she's confirmed that July 18th would work, so our next board meeting. Once we're done with that board meeting, we'll head over to Prairie Lakes and tour that facility. It will take about an hour. So if the board meeting's done at 10:30, she said just come anytime, and then we'll do that tour. So the budget work session, I'm planning for August 20th. It's the second meeting in August. Prior to that, too, at the July 18th board meeting, I'm going to provide a budget preview of where we're coming in with the levy and all of the different things working on that. And so I'll provide kind of a short, brief packet of the budget for the next board meeting. And then we'll go more in depth at the August 20th meeting.
there was something about, what date? Oh, the 18th, the July 18th. Do we have West Central Mental Health Housing?
Yep, at 1 o'clock.
At 1 o'clock? So we'll have to be cognizant of our agenda items if we're gonna try to squeeze that tour in between West Central Minnesota Mental Health Housing. All right, so, again, on the 9th, let's see, I gotta get to the right date here. Last month. On the 21st of June, I had Association Minnesota Counties Board of Directors meetings. Every time we go to those meetings, we feel like it's summer, this is going to be a short meeting, they all run over. And for the same reasons they do here, we have robust discussions. And so Matt Hilgart, who was our chief lead analyst for policy at the Capitol, gave us kind of a summary of the workings, and I think several of you might have been, maybe not several, but a few of you might have been on the webinar regarding the tax forfeiture rules. So we got a pretty in-depth description of how that turned out. Basically, about as good as we possibly could have got it. There's like $105 million over the next, I think, 5 or 6 years to be used across the state of Minnesota for settling those kind of lawsuits. And then there's also a policy for going forward. So both steps were needed. They handled it in 2 different legislations, and I think we got about as good as we could out of it as counties. Then on, I had on and off, I think we all did on the 25th with Dave Unlock, and then on the 26th, I had a Minnesota, well, you guys were watching tax forfeiture webinar. I was on a MnDOT corridor planning session with Minnesota Department of Transportation. Then later that day, like Corky, I had a special meeting of Joint Powers, EDC Joint Powers. And then I had some constituent stuff, and again, that brings us to yesterday, which was basically Tammy's retirement. So it was a pretty short month, like all the rest of you, so. Commissioner Anderson.
I guess one thing I just wanted to bring up, and we just got it as an email, but I think it's important that we think about it, is AMC is accepting applications for their outstanding services, county achievements, or county conservation or economic development for the county. And I think that we really need to look at, if there's people listening, if there's things that are in your area that are important, that are big things that we've done in the county. We've got a great county, and I think we deserve the chance to get something in each of these categories. So let Kelsey know, so that we can get that process started. They have to be in the end of October, so I think that's a big thing that we gotta take and put our people that are doing great things out in front and give them a chance to win an award.
It's a good point. That's the same, that's the same process as where the New London High School got last year for the EMT thing. So if you have an idea, you're right. But it does take a lot of work to write those grants, so be careful what you ask staff to do. It's a lot of work. All right, anything else? Did you have your hand up too?
Yes, if I may, the tax forfeiture webinar we were on, that it really talked a lot about the details that goes into it. And so it sounds really interesting, and I think we came out as counties pretty good on this considering, but like you said, Mr. Chair, but also the counties have to have a tight timeline to get all this information in, and the county's roles are changing greatly. So I believe Administrator Baker is on top of that, but maybe we could have an update down the road from Mark or somebody on that. That'd be interesting. It's going to be a lot of extra work for the counties.
Yeah, I think we've put some forfeiture issues on hold just because we wanted to see what happened, with the legislation, rather than go down the road and then have to undo it. So I suppose those will be working their way through the system shortly. All right, if there's nothing else to come before the board, we are adjourned.